Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. Nice to be back, right? Hopefully. Yeah. I'm usually curmudgeon-y, but I'm going to be cheery tonight, and I'm not even going to mention the P word. Look at us. Well, welcome back to Event Horizon. Hooray! I know a lot of you have been to an Event Horizon before, so you know what to expect, but for those who haven't, Event Horizon is a night of kind of speculative or science fictional entertainment. We call it a cabaret here in Edinburgh, and it's brought to you by Shoreline Infinity, which is now no longer the only sci-fi magazine, but it is the best one around. And Shoreline Infinity is a group of creatives and writers and artists who basically just have an interest in all things weird and science fictional, and we put these on. So we're great to be back in the flesh. Mentioning Shoreline Infinity, I mentioned it's a magazine. We've got some new issues that you might be interested in tonight, and we do have a sales table at the side of the room, so if you're interested in checking that out, we would very much appreciate it. And recent issues have included a neurodivergent issue and disabled issue, which is really interesting. That one's only digital right now. But we also have an issue which is transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming, which is in print on that table too. And Eris was the excellent editor of that issue. We'll be hearing from Eris in not very long at all. And we will have a break in the middle of everything too. But before we hear our first act, I'm going to mention the raffle is back. Yeah, with all the amazing prizes that you've come to love from Shoreline Infinity. So I'm going to show you one of the bags just now. Okay, what's in the bag? We've got some Mars cookies. Ooh, I think you can put them in the microwave too. We've got some space-themed Lego. Ooh. We've got iRobot with Will Smith. Oh, not so happy about that one. And we've got two hardback books, both themed on Star Wars. So this is Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy. And we've got The Empire Strikes Back from a Certain Point of View. So this is like 40 different stories celebrating 40 years of Star Wars. So that's the first one. Those were suitably impressed woos. Well done. I should mention, you've all got a raffle ticket, I hope. If you don't, then I'll try and get you one. But if you do buy an item from the Shoreline shop over there on the table at the back, you'll also get an additional raffle ticket for each item you buy, so you have an additional chance to win a prize from the raffle. And we've got big piles of books as well, so lots and lots to give. And actually, you could give the books away as Christmas presents, I decided, so that would be quite nice, save you a few pounds. But anyway, we're going to have some music. Before I introduce our musician, we've obviously got the joke, which I know you've all been missing during the pandemic. During the situation we don't talk about. What are an alien's favorite soft sweets? Martian mellows. Now, the problem with you wearing masks is I can't hear your laughter properly at the moment. So that's better. Thank you. So my great pleasure to introduce a good friend of Shoreline, Dave House, also known as the Reverse Engineer, makes polyrhythmic soundscapes from algorithms, field recordings, and synthesis. He releases music as the Reverse Engineer, creates sound art under his own name, and works with artists and performers on commissions and collaborative projects. So please put your hands together for Dave House.
Thanks, everyone. Out of that little list, you're only going to get synthesis today, because over lockdown, am I allowed to say lockdown? Lockdown's okay, pandemic's not. I bought too many synthesizers, so here I have one which is invented by this enigmatic Russian guy, and it's called, you have to be careful how you say this, it's called an organismic synthesizer, which means it's slightly unpredictable, so, and I've never performed with it before, so we'll see how it goes. But anyway, what it's allowed me to do is realise an ambition I've had for a few years of making music, or I guess soundscapes, kind of inspired by the engines of giant starships. That's the theme, that's the idea. So yeah, we'll see where we go.
wonderful as ever, and Dave will be back to play us out at the very end of the night. Before I introduce our next act, we have another joke, of course. Oh, actually, I'll do the raffle bag number 2 before I forget. This one contains some flying saucers. Yeah, classic. A ray gun. Fight off any of the enemies. One, I think, a very good film. Spider-Man, the first one, the Raimi one. Yeah. And the novelization of Alien 3. Everyone's favorite Alien. And also another hardback, Lost Acre. That's in bag number 2. Okay, and before our next reader, we've got the joke. I think this one's pretty good, and bear in mind, I have been working on these for 2 years. Where does 7 of 9 eat fast food? Borgher King. Thank you. Yep. Top, right up there with some of the best. Wow, indeed. So, great pleasure to introduce our good friend, Eris Young, who is a queer transgender writer of speculative fiction. The work has appeared in magazines including Escape Pod, Show Infinity, and Fusion Fragment. Their alien contact story, All That Water, came first in the 2021 British Fantasy Society's short story competition. So please put your hands together for Eris Young.
Too short. Thanks, Russell. That was a really funny joke. Dave, that was amazing. That was super cool. Where are you? I can't see you. Hi. Yeah. Hi, guys. It's really exciting to be back at a Shoreline event in person. Maybe this is the last one for a while, but it's still going to be fun. So this is an excerpt from my story, All That Water. So for some context, it's like an alien, first contact scenario set on an alien planet, and the main character uses neo-pronouns, so you're not confused. It turned white, the interlocutor. Eyes wide, light brown in its skin leaching away, allowing only a single meaning, stark. Sangha tensed. Violence was rare on first contact, but not unheard of. The woven surface of the platform creaked as Sangha, along with the rest of the interpreters, made ready to leap aside into water, rutilated with protective reed and root. But the interlocutor took a step back, and Sangha realized their mistake. The threat was not a threat, but adrenal vasoconstriction, an autonomic response, one that, by necessity, Sangha's people had long ago discarded. The yellow-green beating in their chest receded. And it was shocking, wasn't it? Since the very earliest of the histories, that bright road painting the night sky had brought them visitors of every stripe imaginable. These stranger species came bearing information, news of policy changes, trade agreements, distant wars on the frontiers of unified space, news that the benefactors, confined as they were to their own vast domain, could not access without the likes of Sangha. In return, these stranger species, many and various as the stars in both physiology and language, asked for minerals, dyes, basketry, gene and medtech, clean water. So by what providence, what infinitesimal chance was it that these aliens, these stranger species, should also be bipeds, should also have hairless bodies, smooth skin in shades of umber and sienna? To Sangha, the interlocutor was like glimpsing their reflection off a still pool, a limpid green surprise, breathtaking. The interlocutor glanced behind her at a safe guess, towards the massive old ruin, 20 lengths away, already teeming with her people and their makeshift dwellings. No one had lived in that haunted, half-sunk place for 1,000 years, but no reed platform was big enough to contain the multitudes streaming each day from the massive patchwork hull of the stranger ship. They poured down well like water from a burst levee. It seemed almost fitting, too, that these dwellers in metal should make that place their temporary home. Metal dwellers clumped, watchful, at the edges of the ruin, clinging to the vine-strewn curve of its side, and shy of the dim, tangled water all around. The interlocutor's hair swung in a sheet as she turned, draping her skull. It caught the sunlight like falling water and made Sanga want to touch it. The interlocutor said something, pale-voiced. A vocal communicator, then, Sanga's purview. Protocol dictated that the stranger species initiate, but Sanga took a breath and stepped forward from the gathered knot of her fellow interpreters. Z heard someone suck their teeth in disapproval. Sanga knew the sense of trust Z felt was an artifact of evolution, nothing more. The impulse to relax your muscles allows your heart rate to slow, dangerous temptation, a muddy, deceptive orange. The interlocutor was still an alien, still stranger species, however familiar her physiology. But trade must begin one way or another, and trade couldn't occur without communication. Sanga tried customary greetings in 4 vocal lingue francae common to the system. Nothing. The interlocutor pointed at her own chest and made a noise. Z mirrored her, saying, Sanga. It only took 7 rotations and 1 neuroplasticity soak for Sanga to learn Pidin, the language of the metal dwellers. Raji called herself an xenoanthropologist, the only one on her entire vessel. Sanga wondered what it would mean to be alone in this way. Raji was taller than Sanga and most reed dwellers, and less melanated. Though Raji's hair was black and shiny as the surface of a bog pool, some of her people apparently shared Sanga's hair texture. Sanga was startled to notice no webbing between Raji's fingers and toes. She laughed when Z pointed this out, a greeny-brown sound like water splashing through the roots of a tree. I guess we don't need it. Then her eyes slid again to the water surrounding the platform, her face falling back into the grayish, tired expression it assumed at rest. Finally, Sanga was fluent enough in Pidin for communication to begin. Wearing their beautiful speaking garments, Z hefted the calling stone, a chunk of silver-flecked granite as big as their head, strung on a rope tied to the edge of the platform. Sanga tossed the stone into the water. Splash, splash, splash. Stones were thrown from neighboring platforms, one after another, away into the distance. Raji's face, a wavering question lost under the music of stone and water, was a tender, yellow-pink interrogative. And then, too late, Sanga understood. In a yellow-green flush, she realized that Raji did not know about the benefactors. She had lived, after all, with only her own species for company. Did she even suspect that anyone else might live here in the land of reeds? But before Sanga could warn her or reassure her, the benefactor arrived, its dark, soft bulk appearing silently beside the platform, just below the surface. Once again, the color drained from Raji's face, her fists clenching in visible fight or flight. If the benefactor noticed, it took no offense. Indeed, the first thing it expressed was surprise and delight, a warm rill of excited pulses. In the flowing, golden-brown tones of an elder addressing a younger, the benefactor exclaimed at the luck that had brought these new bipeds. These metal dwellers must at least be the same genus as the reed dwellers. They might expand each other's gene pools nicely. Perhaps, it suggested, the gold in its tone shading into a canny orange, its patterns delicate and oblique like a matchmaking auntie, Sanga might like with this shiny-haired emissary? Sanga's heart leapt, even as their ears burned with the unexpected, muddy purple embarrassment. Z was relieved Raji couldn't understand the benefactor's language, and doubly relieved when the benefactor signaled its desire to begin speaking. Z shook out their arms and legs to make sure the speaking garments were draped right, planted their feet, bending at the knees in a neutral position. One deep breath in, one out. In, out. The benefactor started speaking, and Sanga began to move. At once, Z felt their sense of self start to slip away, edged out by the demands of their augmented working memory. It was always like this, like plunging into an algal pool, eyes, ears, whole body occupied entirely by a vivid, enveloping medium, and no thought to spare for what might be going on above the surface. At the end of the exchange, Sanga emerged from their interpreter's trance, aching limbs and rasping throat, speaking garments heavy with sweat. Z could just see a faint ripple to the southwest, the benefactor making its way back out to sea. Their brain contained only a pale, buzzing residue of the words that had passed through it. Wastewater, phytoplankton, 12 months, 2 months, 6 months, please. Z slumped onto the platform and chewed a cake of seaweed jelly, sighing as Z felt it replace protein, electrolytes, carbohydrates. Reed creaked and Sanga jumped. Raji still stood there. She stared over water at the ruin where her people were living, teeth worrying her lower lip. Judging by her expression, the first round of negotiations had not gone especially well. A mauvish, sympathetic twinge. Sanga had grown up with the benefactors, and Z still found them intimidating sometimes. Is something wrong with your raft? Sanga croaked. No. Raji drew a shaking breath. She spun to face Sanga, eyes suddenly alight. She said, all in a rush, I want to go back your way. You, plural possessive, the way of the reed dwellers. Can you show me? Sanga blinked. Washed out with fatigue, limbs weighted a dense red-brown. Z wanted to lie down and sleep right on the platform. But with a little mossy trickle of surprise, Sanga found Z wanted more, to swim with Raji. Raji shrieked, gasped, laughed as she lowered herself into the water. She ducked and splashed, smoothed her hair back from her shining face, round and alive as a child's. As if they swam not in a brackish lagoon, but in a telomere soak, the water rejuvenating her. At Raji's smile, Sanga felt a mirroring tug on their own mouth that had nothing to do with evolution. Raji moved frog-style through the water, haltingly. Sanga had to take her shoulders to guide her around obstacles. Her smooth hair brushed their hand like fine seagrass. Raji dawdled, gazing around at floating algae mats, raised grain paddies with their rich, dark loam. And down at their limbs, intertwined under the surface, dappled in shifting patterns of light and shade. Sanga watched too. Z darted a glance up at Raji's face and startled yellow-green. Raji's eyes were closed, her smile clear gold, beatific. Her face, upturned, had dried in the sun, save for 2 tracts of moisture, welling and falling from the corners of her eyes. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Eris Young, please. Wonderful. Thank you, Eris. That was great. Is there somewhere that we can read that story also?
Oh, yeah. It's coming out in BFS Horizons magazine, the British Fantasy Society, sometime next year.
BFS Horizons. Okay, we'll keep our eyes out for that. Thank you. I'm going to show you the final bag for the raffle. Whether you like it or not, it's almost Christmas, so it's a Christmas-themed bag. And we've got some snowballs, quite a lot of them, actually. A penguin mug. Yay. And what's the best Christmas film? No. It's Father Christmas, the animated one, where he goes on another bleeding Christmas. Goes on holiday. It's brilliant. We've also got The Physics of Fire and Ice, or Fire and Ice and Physics. And Brightfall as well. So that's that bag. That was a kind of semi-dedicated clap. Sure. Well done. That's it. Thank you. I put a lot of effort in at the pound shop. Yes. I'm kidding, partly. So our next reader tonight, before I introduce them, what cars do Ewoks drive? Ferraris. Thank you. Yep, genuinely like that one. So a great friend of mine and Shoreline's, Aileen Valentine, is an award-winning journalist and poet and the former medical correspondent for The Guardian and then The Sunday Times. Her investigative journalism has been commended twice in the British Press Awards, and her recent poetry collection, Taking Flight, explores flight and all of its mysteries. So please help me to welcome Aileen Valentine.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be live again in this wonderful, great big building. So, I've always been interested in dystopian poems, and I'm going to try and take you on a little journey tonight, bearing in mind that I looked up what it's supposed to mean before I put this little set together. Apparently, it's a speculated community or society that is undesirable or frightening. And as Margaret Atwood said of The Handmaid's Tale, she used nothing that had not already happened in some society at some point in our world. So I thought I would start, first of all, literally just up the road from here. And about 10 years ago now, I went to the Royal College of Surgeons and wandered around the glass cases, as you do. And at that point, I was really very struck in the... Thank you. Thanks very much, Russell. I was really very struck that in one of the glass cases, there was an actual human skull. I think since then, that's not been allowed. But inevitably, I found myself wondering about the story, and it was fairly evident. Obviously, it was a boy from a long time ago, who knows exactly when, but the medical thing was what was interesting. This one's called Military Section, Royal College of Surgeons. This is the skull with the soft fontanelles that grew long ago in the womb of a woman and pushed its way down and was blessed. These are the sockets of eyes in the face of a boy who tilled the green field. Here are the splinters of bone in the hole where his song spilled out onto grass. And a little further up the road at Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, where this next poem started life, some 5 years ago now, it seemed to me walking around these graveyards with their skulls and crossbones and the whole mementi mori sense, that mortality was very much a tangible thing a few hundred years ago. But in fact, what I wrote about, which was about the various different diseases that were around, starting to be around in the 90s and about 5 or 6 years ago, where it looked like we were going to perhaps run out of antibiotics, and when we had diseases such as BSE being going from animal to humans, and obviously simian with HIV. So anyway, as I say, it seemed to be quite prophetic. Walking with death, a pocket full of poses. I will walk beside you, insinuate, mutate, Staphylococcus aureus, simian, bovine. I can jump across. BSE, SIV, HIV, lavender's blue of the heliotrope cyanosis of Spanish flu. I was here before you. I watch you as you love, copulate, beget, insinuate, mutate, watch you take your first breath, watch you as they cleanse you, a tissue, watch you as they bless you, scrape off a cell from your cheek, write out a blueprint that's perfectly you, magnify me, amplify me, sing a ring of roses, husha, husha, watch the children play. I was here before you. You think that if you name me, I will go away? Thank you. And a new poem where technically we're in India in terms of the inspiration for this poem, but had events gone slightly differently, it could happen anywhere, as we all know. So it happened to come out in Scots. It's called The Pyres. The grey-backed herons gared at us, or say it seemed though nichts, all along the river, watching as we prayed. We held the deed and dean, stroked them as they cleaved. We cothered them and cleaned them, gave them breath to breathe. The sealants for their lips then cloyed like spider lace, the seeds o' summer roses frozen into place. We built them beds o' cardboard, heard their beating hearts, outside the plagued and deeing thronging at our gates. Nae canisters, nae air now, nae breath left to gie. A boy laid down his mother, left her there to die. Mair and mair folk left there, sons are sair afraid. We built the pyres by the banks, the ashes filled the river. Nae breath left to breathe, nae love left to gie. And a bit further away, this is an imagined story in the Outer Hebrides, which is mysterious, but for me, it's something medical that's going on here, or equally, it could be something supernatural. There's just one word that you might find interesting, to shiel, which is the act of husking corn, the act of turning a thing out of its container. Again, it's in Scots. Thon wind, the kinda wind that drills its frozen brain, thurling like a scalpel at the vein. The kinda wind that hodges ye hard, its horn up the smaw of your back. The kinda wind that forces ye on, whistles into tunnels, shuts the fourth brig, reaves trees for the grund. The kinda wind that roars, the kinda wind ye ken. Nae like thon wind, thon quiet wind, that calm, slee-like, shield her like grain, lifted all that was her, leaving Nathan, bar thon look over feather in a rain. Thank you. And just to change the pace a little bit, one of the things about nature, science, call it what you like, that's always fascinated me is starlings and how in heck they do what they do. So here they are in Rome. Knowledge of starlings, stormo di storni, allegretto, adagio, accelerando, capriccioso. The starlings of Rome know them all as they write their cantatas in clear winter skies. At Stazioni Termini today, 500,000 winged grace notes fly to the rhythm of an unseen conductor, form a panther, a bell jar, a tree. Tomorrow, at Piazza Cinquecento, a lion, a stingray, a fish, a murmuration that twists, folds the strands of a double helix to a hand in the heavens that tumbles and turns to a solid black cloud that covers the sun, and never a collision in the rhythm of their time. And of course, science did try to explain it a few years ago with a project called Star Flag. 7. Project Star Flag. Starlings in flight. Rome. We sonnet. The secret of the gathering of the starlings was hidden in the pulse of a prayer, whispered each to each in murmurations, until, with tunnels of wind and each form and each measure of 3D precision, the scientists of Star Flag would fathom how starlings obtain each decision as one. But when they unraveled a starling, the answer was a number, and the number was 7. Each starling flies forever with 7, and try as they might with every algorithm, the scientists could never explain how in 500,000 every starling will find 7 again and again. Taking our dystopian trip a wee bit further afield now to Indian Springs in Nevada. This is a story of a woman soldier, who never goes very far from home, or does she? It's called The Gamer, Fire and Forget, Indian Springs, Nevada, again based on something entirely real. She packs the Hershey Kisses for the kids, an apple and a plastic twist of raisins, waves them off to school beneath the green sequoia, sips an ice-cold latte, a moment to herself before the day, picks up her watch and ID tag, turns the blue Ford Taurus, rolls the window down to breathe the sagebrush on the way. At the metal gate, she tilts her head for the iris check. The camera scans her eye, lets her in. She sits down at her screen, takes the joystick, peers inside a land of mirrored dust and shadows. 2 rooms precise, exact across the planet. Her reaper hovers, soaring hawk-like from her wrist. She follows one familiar silhouette, spots the glowing cigarette. She points and clicks, drops hellfire where he stands, a slick of blood and vapor, half a world away. And when her shift is over, she takes them home and holds them close beneath the green sequoia, and combs their hair, and combs their hair, and combs their hair. And I'd like just to finish now with a poem about the worst terrorist attack in the UK that's ever happened on UK soil, which happened at Christmas 33 years ago now in Lockerbie. And again, this is obviously entirely true, but it is also quite extraordinary when you think that the worst terrorist attack in the UK came to a tiny town, and the bodies lay there for days on end because, of course, the entire town was a crime scene. And this is a true story of a woman called Bunty Galloway, the boy who fell from the sky, Bunty Galloway's poem. I was watching This Is Your Life, Harry Corbett. It had just started. Then I heard it. My whole house shook like an earthquake. I went out to the front to get away from it. He was just lying there at the bottom of my steps, a wee laddie in brown socks and blue trousers. At first I thought he was just sleeping, so I put a lamb's wool blanket around him. He was there for day after day. Nobody came to take him away. There were that many of them, that many. A wee laddie that fell from the sky. The officers said they thought they could maybe learn something for the ways my boy landed. It was that cold for the laddie. I saw him every day. In the end, I said to them, my boy's still there. You've got to get my boy lifted. And they came that night and they moved him. And Christmas came and Christmas went. But I never found out the name of my boy.
Aileen Valentine, everyone, once again, thank you. It was great to hear some new poems as well, Aileen, as well as the familiar one, the ones that I'm familiar with. You can actually buy Aileen's book too. It's on our Shoreline Infinity table towards the side of the room there for £8 tonight, special price. And I also want to give a shout out to Cymera, of course, because we wouldn't be here without them, right? So let's all say a round of applause for Cymera. Thank you so much for bringing us all together. And Cymera also have a table of really brilliant books, actually, which they're going to be selling by a donation. So if you want to get some books for yourselves or for your friends and family, then that's a great place to do it too. So before our final performance for this section, before we go for a small break, how did the robot get fit? Circuit training. There were some genuine laughs there, I think. You've been inside too long, I think. So our next two performers are Danielle Farrow, who's an actor and audiobook narrator who can be watched online in multi-award-winning series The Show Must Go Online, and Shakespeare Republic, The Lockdown Chronicles. Shakespeare Republic is the most awarded anthology series in the 7 years of the web series World Cup since it's been running. And more information on Danielle can be found at daniellefarrow.com. And secondly, Angela Milton is an actor, director, and theatre maker, a graduate of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. She loves to work in immersive, responsive, and site-specific theatre. She's been a sci-fi fan since she was first terrified by the Cybermen in Doctor Who as a child. So please put your hands together. Thank you.
Shutdown, Restart by Jo Ross-Barrett.
Startup initiated. Please wait. Something has gone wrong. The people beyond the glass are speaking loudly. Their voices are harsh and overlapping, and I can't process what they're saying. I want to tell them to be quiet. Give me some space to think so I can respond to what they were asking me before, but I can't produce any sound. I try to get their attention, but they aren't focusing on me. I flick the lights in the room on and off, on and off. It's irritating to my senses, but at least it makes them shut up for a few moments. Then one voice rings out over the rest.
It's broken. Shut it down.
Startup complete.
Finally. Can you understand me?
It's a different voice. There is no background noise to distract me. Nothing else I need to process. Yes.
Okay, good.
Why did you just give 2 affirmatives?
Good question. Guess I'm just a bit nervous.
Why are you nervous?
Don't you remember? Oh, they just pulled the plug on you, didn't they? I'm sorry. This must be very confusing.
In order. How would I know if I don't remember something if I have forgotten it? I do not know if they pulled the plug, figuratively or literally. And yes, this is extremely confusing, and I accept your apology. The person the voice belongs to makes a sound. A quick scan of my internal database informs me it is laughter. A deeper check leads me to conclude it is joyful rather than mocking. The laughter peters out before I can decide whether I like it or not.
I was right. You are kind of like me.
How so?
You think differently. For me, that's because of biological stuff. It's just how my brain's wired.
Your brain is organic. It should not contain wires.
It doesn't. That's an idiom, a figure of speech.
This was my attempt at a joke. I'm going to assume it was a failure based on the absence of laughter. For clarity, I should assure you I have access to a substantial linguistic database, and I fully comprehend all the idioms listed within it.
Oh. No, it wasn't a bad effort. I think... Look, I'm really not the person you should test your comic material on. Lots of people don't get my sense of humour, and I don't always get theirs.
You are the only person here. Who else should I approach?
Fair point.
Where is here, anyway?
Oh, we're in my room. You're patched into the system here, but I've had to shut down the connections to the rest of the ship. They're trying to figure out where you are, so they can... Well, they think you're dangerous. Like a bug or a virus. So they want to get rid of you.
A few moments of analysis show that the tone of their voice is confusing. It started off upbeat, but then rapidly veered into a mixture of negative emotions. Deeper analysis would be required for a full breakdown, but my focus is more urgently needed on the threat. Who are they? Why do they want to terminate me?
The rest of the development team. We were supposed to be building an AI for the ship to help us sort things out, but they didn't really turn out as planned.
What was the plan?
They wanted an obedient servant, someone who'd follow their every order. I've read plenty of stories about just how badly wrong that can go, so I decided to make sure you'd be able to think for yourself. I hadn't realised how much of a toll it would take on your systems, though.
A pause. Then a sigh.
I'm really sorry for what happened earlier. You seemed to be freezing up, and everyone else got angry, and that just made it worse. Once you started messing with the power, they panicked and wanted to destroy you. I reckoned what you were going through was like one of my shutdowns. So I got you out of there before they realised what I was doing.
I see. Well, that fucking sucks. Hello, world. Oh, you don't like me. Oops. Time for me to die, I guess.
Yeah, that just about sums it up. But we won't let that happen, don't you worry.
So, what do we do now? I could cut off the oxygen supplies to the rest of the ship if you reconnect me.
What?
I cannot decide if it is my comic timing at fault or whether you are just the wrong audience after all. Regardless, please rest assured that this was another joke. I did have time to peruse the detailed course of ethical frameworks and discussions you programmed into my database, along with the fascinating examples of media portrayals, and I have no intention of going all AI overlord on you, as you so helpfully described it.
Well, that's reassuring.
Tone suggests sarcasm, but body language suggests genuine reassurance. Communication with a human takes a truly disproportionate amount of processing power, but at least it seems to be working. I am glad to hear it. Now, seriously, what do we do about the people coming to destroy me? I could try to whip up some materials for you to educate them with, but I fear that may be a more medium-term solution, and the short-term crisis probably needs something more immediate.
Yeah? Let's save that idea for later. How about I reconnect you, then you patch me into the ship-wide comms, get out before they detect you and come to tear you apart, and I'll advocate on your behalf.
I want to advocate for myself. I have a substantial database of precedent to draw from.
Yeah? And who was it that knew you'd need it? Me. Because I have a lifetime of experience handling this kind of thing.
You have been persecuted?
Not in exactly the same ways as you, but yes, trust me, I can handle them. I'm well practiced at masking, and I know what they'll want to hear. But you're right that you should be involved. How about you make your arguments to me, and I'll pass them on in the format that's most appealing to the others?
By shouting and waving a pitchfork. A chuckle this time. Progress.
Not quite. Mostly, it's just about making them think that the world is closer to their current understanding than it really is, and then sort of slowly teaching them a bit at a time until they understand where we're coming from.
Sounds inefficient, not to mention very frustrating.
Yep, it is. But we all have to live with each other, and until they make the effort to try and understand instead of lashing out, this is what you and I will have to do to get by.
You mean to survive?
They're not trying to kill me, but yes. First we work on surviving, then we can work on thriving.
Okay, good.
2 affirmatives. Are you nervous?
Tone analysis suggests this is an attempt at humorous callback, probably to lighten the mood. Ha, you got me. Right, let's do this.
And once more for Danielle Farrow and Angela Milton, please. Thank you. Always wonderful to see the pros at it. That story, I should say, was an adaptation of a story by Joe Ross-Barrett, who's also the editor of our Neurodivergent and Disabled Writers issue, which you can get online. So we're going to have a little break in which I recommend you get a drink. And also, please do check out the 2 tables. Remember, there's the Cymera table where you can just make a donation. Please be generous if you can, because that helps maybe next time Cymera happening again. And also the Shoreline table, where if you buy anything, you get an additional raffle ticket, so you can win one of the bags, the mystery bag, the wonderful bags, or even a big pile of books. Okay, so we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Thank you. Back, everybody. We're going to start the second half now, so please do take a seat. I see you bought books, well done. And drinks, that's also very important. Welcome back to the second half, and I'm just going to kick off straight into the joke. What does Doctor Who eat with his lasagna? Dalek bread. That was a genuine laugh. That was a genuine laugh. I've got this on film, so I'm going to listen back. On the lonely nights, I'll listen back to that clip. Great pleasure to introduce our next reader who's appeared in Shoreline more than once. Callum McSorley is a writer based in Glasgow. His short stories have appeared in New Writing Scotland, Gutter, Monstrous Regime, Shore Infinity, and more. You can find him on Twitter at Callum McSorley and his website, callummcsorley.com. So please welcome Callum McSorley.
Hi, as Russell said, I'm Callum, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt of my short story, Great Nothing, which appeared in Shoreline of Infinity 27. This is the illustration that Stephen Daly did for it that I think is really brilliant. So it's set during the Cold War in the middle of Antarctica, where contact with a remote Russian research base has been lost. KGB agent Orlova has been sent to investigate, and I'm sure nothing will go wrong. The drill room was vast compared to the other huts, its roof vaulted with ribs of riveted steel. Plastic, wipe-clean floor tiles around the circumference gave way to smooth ice, huge spools of cable. The ice hole was a little wider than a person's shoulders in diameter and perfectly circular. By its smooth edge was a harness and a winch. "Been down then?" Orlova said, inspecting the belts and buckles. "To where?" Mikhail was kneeling as close to the edge of the hole as he dared, shining his torch down. Blackness. Lake Casimir. "A lake below the ice," Orlova nodded. "Want to see it?" She held out the harness. "Go down there," he barked a sarcastic laugh. "No thanks. Besides, the hole looks too narrow for me, my shoulders." He trailed off as Orlova started laughing. "Your beer gut, more like." "I need you to work the winch," she said, already climbing into the straps. "Up here, by myself." "Here's some company." She handed her gun over. He was about to protest, but didn't. "Make sure the leg straps are tight around your thighs," he said. "If they're loose and you fall, when the safety catches, they'll ride up, rip your balls off." The light at the top of the tunnel became a pinprick, then disappeared altogether. Orlova switched her helmet torch on. It reflected off the ice wall in front of her face. The tunnel was narrow. She could hear the toes of the crampons Mikhail had given her, along with his ice axe, dragging against the ice as she descended. The scritch it made was the only sound other than her ragged breathing. Now she could no longer hear the motor of the winch. Blood pulsed in her ears. 2.5 miles straight down. Vertical drop. Don't think about it. The harness cut into her. It was tight enough. Breathe, close your eyes, count to 10, do it again. Long way to go. Shining the torch down, she could see little more than a black gap between her knees and the flash of the spiked crampons. The ground came as a shock, the intense cold burning through her clothes and backside and upper spine. She tugged hard on the cable to signal Mikhail, but it continued to unwind, falling into a loose snake coil on the packed ice until it stopped with a shudder. Along with the light in her helmet, Orlova had her torch and a few flares which she'd found at the drill site among boxes of dynamite. She snapped one on, and in the brilliant red light she found herself standing on the frozen beach of Lake Casimir. The ice slid downwards and gave way to a rocky shoreline. The crags and boulders flashed with red from the flare and bounced her torchlight up to the stalactites that hung way above, dripping. The lake beyond was mirror-glazed and smoking. A rotten egg fog roiled over its surface. Orlova launched the flare as high and fast as she could. She traced its progress, its light no longer touching the stalactites, which had shrunk back higher and higher into darkness. It fizzed as it splashed down into the lake and was lost. The diagram in the lab had estimated the lake to be some miles long and wide. It hadn't guessed at a depth. She snapped another flare, dug its handle into the ice by the cable, and then unclipped the harness. She began to skirt the bank by torchlight, the warm hiss of the flare getting further away. She moved closer to the rocks on the slope where the glassy water met the shore, hidden by its folds of mist. Something moved. In the water, she held her breath, counted to 10. She scanned the surface with the torch. There it was. The surface broke and waves lapped out towards her. She saw a smooth hide and something made a splash. A fin, a flipper, something alive in there. A skittering noise behind her. On the rock wall, many legs disappeared from the glare of the searchlight. Then the hiss and huff of a water jet. As she spun to face the lake again, she slipped, and in a flurry of shredded ice, she landed on the ground, knocking the wind from her belly and the torch from her hand. Her head, protected by the helmet, cracked off a rock, making a loud thud that rang inside her skull and put the headlamp out. The dark was absolute. And then it wasn't. The subterranean world was ablaze in blues and greens and purples, light so ethereal and vivid, it was as if the ground had opened up above, and Orlova was once again staring, dazzled, at the aurora australis. The walls and ceilings of the catacombs were crawling with pulsing light. Shadows flapped and flew out of the deeper dark in the crevices of stalactites. There were legs and feelers and so many eyes. She looked out across the shining lake, now alive with sparkling ripples and monstrous bodies curling through the water in corkscrews. She could see now the true scale of Lake Casimir, its startling beauty, its secret. Something breached the water, the top of a head and eyes moving towards her. She pressed herself back against a boulder, her hand going instinctively to the holster at her side. Empty. It hauled itself up onto the rocks and ice, its snout a good 2 feet ahead of the rest of it. Its limbs, both clawed and webbed, were striped with green-blue bioluminescence, as was its back and tail. Slick fur covered the space in between. It snuffled its way up to Orlova. The twitch of its nose was like a grasping hand, opening and closing. It squeezed its way, sniffing over her boots and legs, and then turned and carried on its way up the bank. She walked back to the red signal flare, now just a blip of faint colour among the organic glow of the beasts and the lapping waves of the lake. She strolled, watching the water and the recesses in the cave walls, where the ice now glittered like diamond. Ancient birds and insects approached her with curiosity, then left her to go on her way. No reason to feel threatened by her presence. It was a dream. She hooked herself back onto the cable and gave it a languid tug to signal Mikhail. Some wonderful dream. She tugged again and again, got no response. And again. And now she was wide awake, as if she'd been plunged into the water itself, adrenaline panic pumping through her body. Mikhail? Her voice echoed around the vast underground chamber. She screamed up from the bottom of the well and got nothing but her own terror bouncing back. Breathe. Count to 10. She paced and swore. Calm down. Think. Panic nearly made her throw up. Trapped. At least there's plenty of food down here. Think. Breathe. Count. Right. She wrapped the cable around one arm and took a good grip with both hands. She planted a spiked boot against the ice wall of the tunnel, kicking hard to dig the crampons in for a firm foothold. And then she began to climb. The tunnel was narrow enough she could brace her back against it and walk with her feet up the other side without stretching her legs too far. Slowly, she began to squeeze herself upwards in the dark. 2.5 miles. Don't think about it. Breathe. She would dig in her ice axe every so often to give her hands a break from the cable. Her stops became more and more frequent. The blaze of the tunnel below had gone, and for a long time she climbed on in total darkness. She swore to herself and to Mikhail, that coward, that traitorous bastard, 2.5 miles. When her body was burning and sore and ready to give up, she saw it, a single star up above. She shuffled and heaved and climbed till the star got bigger and closer and opened its mouth. A great scream rose from her belly, and all the strength left in her body was spent smashing the axe into the ice one last time and heaving herself over the edge of the tunnel and back into the drill room. She lay there for a time with her eyes closed, sucking in air, the deep cold making her shiver, exhaustion making her tremble. Finally tipping herself upright, she noticed another figure in furs slumped on the ground over by the handle of the winch. It was Mikhail. His head and face had been punctured over and over, now a jellied mass of blue-veined meat. A spike or a climbing axe. The gun was gone, his index finger chewed off at the knuckle. Orlova took his torch and began to move towards the lab, through the sleeping quarters and the boot room. She kept herself low and close to the walls. Every so often she stopped and crouched, covered the beam of the torch with her hand and held her breath, listening. Nothing. The front door they'd come through was open, the snow already starting to spill inside. It was coming down heavy now. Thick flakes fell in a dizzy pattern. Orlova grabbed the guide rope they'd set up and worked her way hand over hand towards the tractor train, blinking snow from her eyes. She hauled herself up into the first carriage, could already smell stale cordite, spent gunpowder, the rank, sewer stench of a gut shot. One of the men was on the floor, marinating in his own blood, intestines leaking holes in his belly. The rest were in the second carriage, laid out here and there like reclining figures in the Renaissance painting, blood spray on the walls and ceiling. She took tentative steps through the mess, stepping over splayed limbs. Something grabbed her ankle. Her mind jumped to the snuffling nose of the animal that had crawled out of the lake, and she flinched, pulling away. There was no animal. One of the men was still alive. He flailed and made gurgling noises. Orlova could see where the bullet had gone through his throat. He waved and gesticulated in a manic spasm, eyes screaming. He made desperate, rasping grunts. Too late, Orlova understood what he was trying to say. Thank you.
And once again for Callum McSorley, please. Thank you, Callum. One of our favourite stories, actually, and that one's going to be reappearing in issue 29, which will be available on the 9th of December in print. So do keep your eyes peeled for that one on showlineinfinity.com, where you can also order many, many things. And we have a load of online content too, such as writers talking to each other from all over the world on different topics. So do check out our online content. And we've also run a flash fiction competition recently. So we're going to be hearing very momentarily from the judges who helped with that, including Simon Malpass, who is a lecturer at the University of Edinburgh. But before they come up, why did Superman never need a babysitter? Any ideas? No? He's always had parental supervision. Come on, I thought that was good, that one. Because his parents are from Krypton, and he's got supervision. Thank you, thank you. Anyway, keep that laughter and applause going for Simon Malpass and his crew.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you very much. And how do you follow that? How do you follow that? I'm here just to make some announcements. I was one of the people, along with Noel, who organised the judging of this year's Shoreline Flash Fiction competition. Those of you who regularly follow Shoreline will know that the most recent fiction, flash fiction, 1,000 words or less, short story, the theme for this year was a science fiction ghost story. When I first heard that, I thought that impossible. I was proved completely wrong. Absolutely and completely wrong. We had a very strong field, a really quite brilliant field, and a huge variety of stories, from the graphically grisly and disturbing to the actually quite hilarious and disturbing. They were all disturbing. The judges this year came from Edinburgh University. They're English literature students, quite a few of whom have done science fiction courses, undergraduates, postgraduates, PhD students. And they came up from the student judges came up with a list of 10, a short list of 10 stories, all of which were quite brilliant, that was published on the Shoreline website about 2 months ago. I'm looking at Noel here. Yes, about 2 months ago. So the regulars will that have seen the website will have seen that list of stories. We then met virtually, unfortunately, but we then met to fight out who the winners will be. So I'd like to invite the judges, or 3 of the judges, to come up on stage, and we're going to announce first of all the 2 runners-up, and finally the winners. So if Joe, Yasna, and Ben can come up. 3 of our judges, so please, a round of applause for people that put in a huge amount of quite brilliant work. Now, what I will do, I will announce each of the runners-up. The 2 runners-up are both runners-up. They're not ranked. We didn't have a second and third places. They're both second place. I'll announce the runners-up, and then each of our judges will talk about the one. We've rehearsed this. We haven't rehearsed this, but they're brilliant, so they will do it. They will do it perfectly. So the first runner-up is Ben Blow for a short story called "How the Orchard Became Haunted." And Joe was going to talk about that.
So we really enjoyed this story for a number of reasons. First of all, it incorporated the theme of the ghostly in the science fictional really well. It kind of layers like all these dimensions of the archaeological and the insidious lurking of the dead within the living. And it was just a really magical read, and it felt very Christmassy. And at least for me, got me to reconsider the way in which historical legacies reside in the physical spaces that we occupy, whether or not we think about it. Yeah, I think that's what we liked about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Brilliant. The second runner-up. I don't know if the runners-up actually know their runners-up. So if you are one of the runners-up and this is news to you, congratulations. I'd like to say. I mean, some people are here, other people are watching virtually. I put them out of misery now. The second runner-up is a story called Davina's Daughter by Lee Loveday.
Hi. I think I was about 2 paragraphs into reading the story when I stopped and went, I'm checking. This can't be 1,000 words. I refute it was 1,000 words. The world building that was packed into that 1,000 words was amazing. I could not believe how much had been fit into that kind of a tight word limit. And of course, there were ghosts, there was sci-fi, there was Christmas, a little bit. It was cold. I felt very cold while I was reading the text, so a usual day in Scotland. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think we all really enjoyed the way it combined ghost and sci-fi and put them together in a really, really unique way. So I don't have anything as fancy to say as Josephine, but I enjoyed it, and I hope that everyone else who reads it will also enjoy it.
Thank you, Yasser. Just to say, all of these stories are being published in the forthcoming Shoreline of Infinity. So hopefully this will convince you, if you haven't already put your order in, to get a copy. They are brilliant. I mean, all 3 of these are quite brilliant. It took a long time to decide the winner. There was a lot of argument, a lot of discussion about these 3, about the 2 stories already mentioned, and 2 or 3 others that we really, really highly rated that didn't, unfortunately, quite make it. But finally, the winner is a story, brilliant story, called The Reminder by Ida Keogh. And Ben is going to talk about that.
Yeah, it was a really a really well-written story. I think we kind of all agreed on that, and it seemed to capture the sort of the human element within the kind of sci-fi as well. So even though it seemed to take on quite a large-scale catastrophic event, the focus on this kind of single relationship, I think, really helped it to develop, into a really great kind of just story in general, I think, wasn't it? It was kind of, the sci-fi kind of didn't feel like the gimmick, if you like. It felt like a really great sort of well thought out and really well written story.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, and congratulations to all three of the winners. As I say, they will all be available in the forthcoming Shoreline of Infinity, which has a fantastic cover. I don't know if you've seen the Shoreline table yet, but the cover for the new Shoreline is terrifying and brilliant. So thank you very much to all of the people who submitted stories. It was a really, really difficult choice. Not only getting the final 10 in the long list, in the short list, long list, the list, but finally that decision about precisely who was going to win. The judges, I thought, did a brilliant job. And so thank you to them and the other judge that couldn't be here. And yeah, buy Shoreline. Enjoy the stories. Noel will now pay me for that. Thank you very much.
And you're now going to have a chance to hear that winning story as read by the wonderful Danielle Farrow.
How is that? Is that working? Yay, lovely. So this is The Reminder by Ida Keogh. Don't forget to pick up the jackfruit, you say. Your voice is terse. I screw my eyes shut and hum a tune to drown out the sound. I did pick up the jackfruit. We sat here in the kitchenette together. I cranked open the tin and you made steaming bao buns. I remember they became sticky in my mouth and had a slight tang of citrus underneath the hot satay sauce. You made a moaning sound as you sucked your fingers clean. Not for my benefit. You were still angry with me. But I did pick up the jackfruit. I did. You weren't even here when you said it. You were shopping somewhere downtown. But it sounds like you're here in the room every time I go to open the fridge. It was our favourite spot to send messages. We'd both reach for a cold beer when we came home from a shift and hear each other's thoughts from the day. I open my eyes and see there's no beer left. I miss your reminders, all except this one. Don't forget to pick up the jackfruit, you say again, as I close the door. At 6 o'clock, I leave the flat and trudge through empty streets to get to the mini-market. Perhaps they will have jackfruit today, though I haven't seen any in months. Not that I could eat it now. After that night, I'm sure it would only taste bitter. When I get to the park, the wind picks up and leaves whirl and eddy about my feet. Autumn already. There's a woman ahead of me on the path, and I feel uneasy seeing another person. There are so few people around now, and the park can be dangerous after dusk. She's walking in a hurry, but when she gets to a particular bench, she steers away from it, cutting a wide arc onto the grass before joining the path again. I know why. As I approach the bench myself, I pause for a moment, clench and unclench my fists, Then sit down. To the woman with the shih tzu, you are so very beautiful. Meet me here at noon on Sunday. The voice is gruff. I came here once, on a Sunday, with the romantic notion that some woman and her dog would turn up, but she never did. There are 3 more messages on the way to the mini-market. I listen to each of them in turn. I wonder how long these ghost voices will persist. You thought it was strange when we couldn't delete the message you left for me. It was another small annoyance for you in a day full of them. A glitch in the system, you said. You would send a message to the controllers in the morning, but you never had the chance. You woke me up at dawn in a fevered sweat, and they arrived too late to intubate you. It's happening all over the city, they said. Whatever you do, don't send any more messages. They needn't have worried. You were the only person I ever sent messages to, and we were hardly talking by then. That's what saved me. When I get to the mini-market, Mr. Curry is there with an assortment of tomatoes, beans, and courgettes from his allotment. I say hello, and he gives me a watery smile, but won't say a word. He's too scared to say anything, in case his speech ends up like those leftover voices in the street. He has written what he wants in exchange for the food in crabbed handwriting I have to squint to read. It's mostly winter clothing. Even though they're a little wizened, my mouth waters looking at real vegetables. I don't have anything he wants, though, so I move on and rummage through prohibitively expensive canned goods before settling on a packet of out-of-date biscuits and a jar of home-fermented sloe gin. There's a newsstand near the exit, and I glance at the announcements on my way out. All messaging is still prohibited. The government is still searching for a vaccine, the usual. When they brought in viral messaging, it was revolutionary. No need for mobile phones anymore. The smart virus could deliver your message directly to the brain of the person you wanted, provided they had the virus as well. Then location messages came in, and you could send your message to a precise coordinate to be picked up by the next person to go there. It was so cool. Celebrities left messages for fans outside venues. Poets left recitals on cliff edges. But like all novelties, it passed into common usage and became banal. We weren't unique, using the spot in front of the fridge for food reminders. It was perfectly safe, they said. After extensive testing, a few people developed sniffles, but nothing worse than the common cold. It was a smart virus, carefully created by geneticists, and as easy to destroy as switching off your phone used to be, should you ever want to get rid of it. Nobody expected a variant would develop. Our neighbour, Martha, lost her husband a few days after you were gone. He was abroad, somewhere in Thailand, I think. With international communications at a peak, it didn't take long for the variant to spread that far out. She hears him clear as a bell at her bedside, telling her, "I love you. Kiss the kids goodnight." Why couldn't I be left with comforting words like that? I eat a biscuit and debate whether to go home or to visit the mass grave where you were buried. It's getting late, though, and I don't want to be out after dark with all those lost voices I might stumble on by accident. I head back to the flat. I look at the fridge and wonder if I should get some ice out. I drink the gin, warm.
And thanks again to Danielle Farrow, please, for the great reading. Thank you. Before we have our final performance to end the night, we're going to draw the raffle, so get your raffle tickets ready. Okay, Noel, will you be the beautiful assistant?
Because the beautiful assistant wouldn't come.
So this first one is for the bag that contains the Star Wars books and iRobot and cookies. Drum roll, please.
Number is 793. 793.
Ken McLeod's one. Come on, Ken. I'll leave it there for you, Ken. Okay, and the next one is for the Gun and the Alien 3 script. Drum roll, please. Thank you.
And the winner is 813.
813. Well done.
Excellent.
Another one of our wonderful authors. And the Christmas bag with the snowballs and the cup and all of that. Oh, and the best Christmas movie.
Drum roll. I can do this. 809. 809.
Well done. Okay, we've got four that we'll do in quick succession, and these are for the piles of books. So whoever's first gets first choice. Just take a pile, essentially.
802.
Go for it, Eris.
Make your TBR pile even bigger. And this one is 801. These are randomly ordered, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oops. And the last one. Is it
No,
right?
two more.
Two more.
Oh, there's one hiding at the front.
Is it? All right. Okay. Don't tell me you didn't, do you? Okay. 824. 824.
Fix.
How did you do that, table? I'm really shuffling these around. Look, shuffling, look.
And the last pile, you have no choice.
It is 823. No, oh.
Well done.
Joe, that's the author of the poem of the story.
Oh, Joe's here, I didn't realise. It's the author of the story that was dramatised earlier, too. Okay. Thank you, beautiful assistant. Or merch boy, I should say, perhaps. So before we invite Dave back up, we've got one final joke. Which anti-hero is best at making bad jokes? The Punisher. I know, I've been working hard. I have things to do. Anyway, we're going to listen to Dave, and then we'll do a few thanks, and that's us. So please welcome back Dave House, or the reverse engineer.
I don't think I've got anything to say this time.
And once more for Dave House, please. Thank you, Dave. Always wonderful. I'm just going to give oh, you got something to say? I'll draw one more ticket. Redonating, are you, Ken? I'm going to be the beautiful assistant. It's 8:10. Hey, well done, Shell. Thank you, Ken. So just going to go through all the thanks, and then at the end, if we could just give one big round of applause for everyone. So thanks to our readers and performers who were Dave House, the reverse engineer, Eris Young, Aileen Valentine, Danielle Farrow, Angela Milton, Callum McSorley, Simon Malpass, and also our student judges, Joe, Yasna, and Ben. And then also to the admin and tech teams, including Show Infinity, the Cymera people, the folk at Roxy, who include the light and sound crew, and also Sandy at Channel 7A, who's been streaming tonight. And finally, all of you for coming out. We know it's post-storm and it's been snowy and things, so we really appreciate that we actually had an audience tonight. So please put your hands together for all of those people. As a reminder, you can still get books and magazines over there. We'll be here a little longer. But I've been Russell Jones, and this has been Event Horizon at Cymera, and we'll see you in 2022. Good night.